You had testified about pursuing the case against the defendant over the boat wreck, correct?
Correct.
And you had communicated to the defense that the defendant was going to have to pay personally, correct?
Correct.
Not just the insurance.
Correct.
And you had been told that the defendant was broke, correct?
That's correct.
And you had filed a motion to compel. Had you filed a motion to compel, States 402, seeking to identify any bank accounts that he had?
In October of 2020.
Could I have the elbow, please? The screen. David, if you can help. All right. I think one of the things that you had also testified to is that just generally COVID had kind of slowed things down in the court system.
Ultimately, yes.
And then you had some health issues that you were dealing with as well, is that correct?
At some point, yes.
At some point in time, did a hearing in the boat case that would include a hearing on this motion to compel that's on the screen get scheduled?
It did.
And when did it initially get scheduled?
My recollection is it was set for May the 30th, 2021.
All right, and let me show you an example of where. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 404 and see if you recognize this document.
I do.
All right, and what is that?
That is a communication about the hearing. It's actually about a status conference about the hearing that's going to be on May the 30th.
Okay. All right, and what was the day of that status conference going to be?
May the 7th, 2021.
All right, and then look at the subject line on that and just take a look at that real quick.
Motions hearing May the 11th.
Yeah. Was that the date or was it May 30th for the motions hearing? To your recollection?
To my recollection, it's May the 30th.
All right. But this email is related to that particular hearing, is that correct?
It's related to the hearing on my motion to compel and some other hearings, yes.
All right. At this point, Your Honor, I move to admit States 404, I believe, without additional objection.
Additional objection.
And is that particular email we were just discussing?
It is. And you're correct, the hearing was May the 11th.
May the 11th?
Yeah.
Okay. Haven't seen that. That refreshes your recollection?
Yes.
We'll show you now what's been marked as States 405. And have a take a look at that and see if you recognize this.
I do.
All right, and tell me what this is, please.
It's an email from Judge Hall, who had been assigned the case about the hearing. John Tiller, who was Alex's lawyer in the boat crash case, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about the same time, just before I found out I had cancer. And so he had a chemotherapy treatment that was going to run long the day of the hearing. He didn't always know when his treatments would be, but about a week before he would know. And so the hearing needed to be rescheduled to accommodate John's treatment.
All right, and just initially when that request was made, what was the judge in that case's response?
The hearing would go forward as scheduled, and one of Alex's other lawyers could attend.
All right, so initially the judge denied that continuous request, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what happened after that that ultimately resulted in it being continued?
I sent an email. John Tiller was my friend, and I didn't object to continuing it. And then the judge had a status conference, and at that point, we continued the hearing until June the 10th.
In the course of this litigation, given that we were coming out of COVID, had the judge in that particular case been relatively aggressive in wanting to move this case forward, to your assessment?
The judge knew that I was in Florida receiving treatment and was accommodating that. No, he wasn't being aggressive at that time. It was when I was ready, and so I was back and we were ready.
And that's what led to this initial hearing, is that correct?
Correct.
But ultimately, you agreed to let this thing be continued, correct?
I did.
All right. Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 4 or 5 into evidence.
Additional objection.
Submitted.
And down at the bottom of this email chain, what's the date on that? Can you read there on your screen? I'll need to bring it back to you.
May 5th, 2021.
And that's communication from whom?
That's from John Tiller to Judge Hall.
All right.
And that's relaying the need for the postponement for the chemotherapy treatment.
All right. And then there were the communications from you related to that, is that correct? Well, let me go right here. This is the response right there. Is that correct from Judge Hall?
That's the initial response, that he intended to go forward with the hearing as scheduled, and that Mr. Condon from the same firm could handle it.
Show you now what's been marked as States 406 and see if you recognize this particular document.
I do.
All right. And what is this? Tell the jury what this is, please.
That's an email from John Tiller. So after the email that's on the screen saying I intend to go forward, John Tiller sent another email explaining a little more detail what was going on, and that he had, I believe it says he had spoken to me and I had agreed. They were my motions. There were some other motions, but when it's your motion, you can agree to continue it if a party wants it continued and you don't object. And so that's what that's doing, is trying to get the judge to not go forward with the May the 11th date.
All right, Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 406 in evidence.
No additional objection.
Submitted.
All right, and the date on that particular email is?
May the 6th, 2021.
Did the judge ultimately, though, based on this series of emails, granted the continuance on this motions hearing, correct?
Well, he gave us a status conference in which we did by video, and ultimately he agreed.
Okay. And what day was the motions hearing that included the motion to compel rescheduled for?
June 10th, 2021.
Going back to States 402, one of the matters that was on the table to be heard would have been your attempt to get compelled responses to this interrogatory from the defendant, correct?
That's correct.
Seeking identification of his bank accounts.
That's correct.
Remember what day of the week? June the 10th, 2021 would have been?
I believe it's a Thursday.
How'd you hear about the murder of Maggie and Paul?
I got a phone call sometime in the middle of the night, 11:30, after my recollection.
And that was on June 7th, 2021?
That's right.
Into June 8th, 2021?
I think I heard it's still June 7th when I hear about it, but yes.
On June 8th, 2021, did you have any conversations with any of the lawyers involved in the boat case, or any communications?
I believe so. I think that it was more of, there wasn't a whole lot of consideration to be given to the fact that the hearing wasn't going to go forward. It was sort of shock and horror of what had happened, and nobody really knew what to do in the moment.
Of course, that hearing's not going forward after this,
It
correct?
did not.
We'll show you what's been marked as States 407 and see if you recognize that particular document.
I do. This is an email from Judge Hall's law clerk. Judge Hall's over the boat crash case to me and the lawyer for Parker's, as well as about the fact that the hearing's not going forward.
Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 407. Additional objection.
So admitted.
What's the date of that email?
June 8th, 2021,
What time?
4:24 p.m. I think there's an email from John Tiller that precedes this one that morning, but
Right. But ultimately, there were communications the following day that obviously we're not going forward with this hearing on the motion to compel, correct?
yeah, pretty much immediately.
And at that period of time, was there any date set in the wake of all of this for it to be reheard?
There was not.
In the wake of the murders, did you generally understand or have an idea of at least what had happened to Maggie and Paul, how they had been killed?
I did.
Just from media reports and the rest of it?
That's right.
And did that have any effect, that tragedy of their deaths, did that have any effect on your assessment of the boat case and how everything fit together, if things were how they initially appeared?
It would have affected, I mean, yes, it did, and it would have ended the case
It would have ended the case against who?
against Alex Murdaugh.
And explain that to the jury. Why? What had changed after this terrible tragedy?
Well, when you have a civil case, nice people get good verdicts, okay, just generally speaking. Yes, sir. Nice people get good verdicts. You really have to motivate a jury to want to help somebody in a civil case. And so if you compared, say, Attila the Hun with some sweet grandmother, who gets a better result? It's the sweet grandmother. If Alec is the victim of a vigilante, nobody's going to hold him accountable. Doesn't make any difference what he did or how clearly what he did contributed. The case would be over against Alec. And so initially, it could have been over. It appeared that it was going to be over against Alec because I had other defendants. I had Parker's convenience store that clearly violated its rules, and so you wouldn't want a very sympathetic person in your case when you have somebody who clearly violated the rules and caused this tragedy. So it would have been over against him.
The sympathies of the case had changed if Alec had truly his family had been the victim of some vigilante or something like that.
The sympathies would have changed if that had been true.
And assessing those sympathies and those emotions in a case like this is what you do as a plaintiff's lawyer, is that correct?
It's what we try to do.
And that's what Alex Murdaugh used to do as well when he was a plaintiff's lawyer.
I think he was good at reading people and knowing what made them tick.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Nothing further at this time. Please answer any questions the defense may have.
Thank you.
Mr. Barber.
Good morning, Mr. Tinsley.
Good morning.
Let's maybe just start asking a couple of questions that I think are just some things that we could agree on before maybe getting to some other things. Was there any life insurance for Maggie or Paul?
I don't believe there was any life insurance on anybody, including Alec.
And if this motions hearing, which was not just the motion to compel, it was other motions, correct, on June the 10th?
Yeah, there were some other motions.
And if that hearing had gone forward, at least for the motion to compel, this would have been another step in a process? Right. In other words, I believe it was your previous testimony, I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th, that this would have been another step, but it wasn't the end point.
So what happens?
Is that correct, sir? Yes or no? Am I misstating your testimony? There wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th?
You're jumping around, so it's hard for me to follow.
I apologize.
Well, if you let me finish.
No,
Your Honor, I would like to ask the witness to be allowed to finish his answer to one of those questions, and I object to the form of the question.
Pose one question.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you previously testify, I think that it's fair to say there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th?
I'm sorry,
Yes
you
or
were
no?
looking down. I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry, I was reading it. I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th. Did you testify, did those words come from that stand when you previously testified, yes or no?
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. You looked down again, and I could not understand what you said.
I
Was there an explosion?
apologize for that. I'll hold it up. I'm just trying to read it accurately. I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th. Yes or no, is that your testimony previously? Just yes or no.
It's possible.
please.
You're trying to turn it into something it's not, but I probably said words to that effect.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
You're asked about the motion to compel being another step in the process, is that correct?
It was a way to put pressure on Alec.
But if, after that hearing happens, and an order granting a motion to compel had been issued, that starts a process that's going to run its course, is that correct?
Objection, pleading.
If a order is, I'm sorry, I'll rephrase that. If a order to compel is granted, tell us about the process that happens after that as it relates to your specific interrogatory we've talked about here today.
Sure. The process starts on Alec's side way before. If you look at those exhibits that they marked the email, you'll see Danny Henderson. Again, Danny Henderson was his personal lawyer. Danny Henderson is also a shareholder in the firm. Danny Henderson is reviewing every single document, that's how meticulous Danny Henderson is. He reviews all of the account information before I get it, and nobody knows better what Alec's making than Danny Henderson. I mean, you'll see all these checks going out and all these payments being made, and Danny Henderson would have known. So the explosion.
Object, Your Honor. Objection.
Basis for the objection.
Foundation.
Response.
Your Honor, he is speaking of,
Speaking of response to the objection.
he has testified as to the fact of his interactions with that individual who actually brought him insurance documents to review. I think he has a basis to know.
Foundation. And your response to the objection.
I believe he has sufficient foundation to address that from his personal knowledge, Your Honor.
Overrule the objection. You may answer.
Thank you, Your Honor. For instance, I had subpoenaed the phone records, not only Alec's, his father's, but we also had John Marvin, Alec's brother's phone records. Danny reviewed those records for a long time before I could get my hands on them. Danny was involved in everything. He was at every hearing. He was at every deposition. He was intimately involved in every aspect of the case.
If an order to compel is issued, what was going to be your next step if you had an identification of accounts by the defendant?
Subpoena those accounts.
And if those accounts are subpoenaed, can potentially people move to quash those?
They could move to quash, but Danny Henderson would have looked at the documents in anticipation that I could get them.
I sustain the objection.
If motions to quash had been filed, though, you could have continued to seek that and there would have been further hearings, is that correct?
I would have continued.
Objection. Sustain, that's the leading.
What would have happened if motions to quash were filed as to any subpoenas you issued to it for the specific information about the defendant's accounts?
I would have continued to push. We would have continued to argue about it.
Would have a process been put in motion, though, that was going to conclusion if an order had been issued on June 10th, 2021?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Step down.
Thank you.
The next witness.
May it please the court. Your Honor, this time the state of South Carolina calls Ms. Blanca Simpson.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony about the truth to help you God? Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
My name is Blanca Turrubiate-Simpson, Turrubiate-Simpson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this difficult for you to be here today?
Yes, sir, it is.
Will you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury, Ms. Simpson, about yourself, where you're from, your family if you want to, and just kind of what you've been doing in life leading up to today, generally, please?
Yes, sir. I'm originally from Brownsville, Texas. I joined the military at the age of 17. I was in Norfolk, Virginia for almost 9.5 years. I was stationed on the USS Puget Sound, USS Shenandoah, Naval Air Station Oceana right before I left.
What'd you do there?
Heavy equipment operator.
Okay.
And my husband was also a heavy equipment operator. We were both in the same field. We decided that the military was just not going to be a good environment for raising children, so we made a decision. Instead of moving to Texas, we moved to South Carolina, where he was from. And we have 5 children, 34, 31, 23, 21, and a 17-year-old. They're all been raised down here in South Carolina.
Any of them still at home?
Yes, sir, 17-year-old.
Where was your husband from? You said he moved back home. Where was he from?
My husband's originally from Gifford, South Carolina.
Say it again.
Gifford, South Carolina.
Okay. And what does he do?
He's a police officer for Hampton.
When you came to South Carolina, you'd never been here before, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. What did you do when you got here besides the hardest job in the world, being a mom and raising kids? What else did you do?
When we moved here, we had enough leave built that we didn't have to work for almost 2 months. So I went to, after about a week, I kind of got bored because I'm used to having hands-on doing something. So I went to the local Piggly Wiggly store in town and I asked I didn't know he was the owner at the time. I realized he was the owner after, if I could get a job because I was bored. And
How many kids do you have?
I have 5,
Okay.
but I only had the 2 oldest ones
Okay.
at that time. And so he said the only job he had was a stalker, and I actually had no idea what that meant because I had just graduated high school and went in the military, so I didn't know. But I told him I would take it as long as it would get me out of the house for a little bit. So I took that job, and then within a week, I got a call from another job that I had put in where it was brazing or welding at Scotsman, which is in Allendale County. And I figured, well, it offers benefits, and it would be better transition for the kids, dental, you know, that sort of thing. So I went there. After about 2 weeks, another job called me and had better dental medical benefits for my kids. So that was the first time I ever, well, I went to work for the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I opened up Ridgeland Correctional Institution. I was the first class to graduate from Ridgeland Correctional Institution. I worked my way up from correctional officer to sergeant. I managed the outside details and the road crew on the interstate. Also, a crew that would go out to Hunting Island for maintenance to assist with the park rangers. In 2001, I was offered a job at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and I accepted the job. So I left Ridgeland Correctional Institution, went to work for FCI Estill, Federal Correctional Institution, Estill, South Carolina, where I stayed until 2007. My job, basically, I started back from the bottom as a correctional officer, and before my year's up, I got promoted to the Special Investigative Support Tech Office, where I was responsible for managing, producing reports, weekly reports, and also profiling the Hispanic gangs, because there was not a lot of staff members that were bilingual. So my job basically became profiling, interviewing, and associating members, the inmate population with gangs.
And how long did you do that?
From 2001 to 2007.
Not that anybody cares, so is that when I first met you?
Yes, sir.
Did you help me arrange a meeting with a prisoner I need to interview?
Yes, sir.
And why did you leave that job?
Just burned, when you're the only, one of the only ones in the office that's bilingual, and you're constantly getting called out for different incidents dealing with a Hispanic population that had grown out quite a bit from the time I got there, and still having to do your daily duties in the office, and nobody's helping you, you tend to burn out pretty quick. So,
So if an
I
incident,
made a decision to leave.
so if an incident happened when they needed a translator,
I
Your
was
phone
call-
got called.
I had to stop what I was doing and respond to whatever incident dealing with the Hispanic inmates.
what did you do after that?
I went into real estate for a little bit, which was not so good because that's when the market crashed.
And again, for the jury's edification, what year is this when you quit the prison?
2007
And you're living where?
in Brunson.
I'm sorry.
Brunson,
So how long did you stay in real estate?
maybe about a year and a half.
Your family's grown at this point, I presume?
Yes, sir.
And did there come a point that you met the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell them how that happened? Tell the ladies and gentlemen how that transpired?
When I first moved to Gifford with my husband, like I said, I was bored, so I went to work at the grocery store. At the grocery store, and during the time that I moved, there was not a lot of Hispanic families living in that area. It has since grown in the years. I met a lady who I befriended. You know, she was Hispanic, and we started talking because she was the only other Hispanic person that I had actually seen in the area. So we started talking back and forth, and it was nice to speak in your native tongue with somebody. Her son had an accident at the school on his way after school, walking to the car, and he had gotten hurt. One of the ladies that worked at the school had recommended that she use an attorney from Walterboro. And a couple of months had gone by, and I noticed that she was under a lot of stress. And as I talked to her, she said, I just have to get all these documents. I don't understand. She spoke English, but it was very broken English. So she was having a difficult time explaining what she needed for the attorney. So I told her, I said, I'm gonna find you an attorney. I'll look around. I said, and we'll go ahead and fire that attorney and hire you a new one. And, because we didn't want the statute of limitations to run out on her case. So at that point, I started looking around, and I happened to walk into the law firm. And it was the old offices where I met Alex.
Just walked in, and that's where you met the defendant, Alex Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were trying to assist this individual who was having trouble communicating with her prior attorney. Don't mention whoever that attorney was, but you helped her get a new attorney.
Yes, sir.
Did you help with that case, that particular case with this friend?
Yes, sir. He told me he would take the case.
Who is he? Who's
Alex told me he would take the case as long as I translated and helped him with the details. Because he didn't have anybody in the office that was bilingual, and I agreed.
You were a hot commodity, weren't you? I mean, there was a need for translators.
Yes, sir.
So you helped with that case?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you assist in other cases with
Yes, sir, I did. At times, Alec would call me and ask him if I could assist in translating or when there were accidents and the folks were injured, and if they did not speak the English language, he would ask me to translate.
And were you getting paid for this service?
Yes, sir. It wasn't a set fee. It was just depending on the case, whatever I did, whether it was to get them signed up with a law firm, basically, or if I had any type of, in the Hispanic community, when you are in trouble or you're in need of something, and a lot of times those accidents, when they happen in the area, they are not from here. The language barrier is a big thing for them. So my instinct was more to make sure that they were well accommodated and whatever they needed. So sometimes he would reimburse me for my out-of-pocket whenever I helped the individuals, who were in the accident.
And that went on for a period of time when you were assisting either Alex Murdaugh or the law firm, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did that change into a caregiver, if you will, or respectfully, I don't mean housekeeper or whatever term you'd like to call it, for Maggie Murdaugh?
Yes, sir. Alex had called me and said Maggie was looking for a person to help her in the home. And at that point, real estate wasn't really doing much for me, and so I told her I couldn't find anybody. I had asked around, and at that point, I told him, I said, well, I'll help her. And he was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'll help her. I said, it's no big deal to me. It's honest work. So I said that I would help her.
You were clearly qualified.
Yes, sir.
So what did you start doing for
I
the Murdaughs or Maggie Murdaugh?
I started helping the other ladies in the house with the cleaning, with running errands, running to the bank for her, whatever she needed me to do.
And when did that start, Ms. Blanca?
In 2007.
And were the two young children, or the two children, Paul and Buster Murdaugh, were they younger? Obviously, they were younger. When you
Yes, sir, they were young.
And would you have interaction with them and/or Alex Murdaugh during this time period?
Yes, sir.
How often were you working for the Murdaughs?
At that point, it was maybe every other day, depending on how often she needed me.
And where was that? Where specifically were you working? Where was their house?
At the house on Holly Street in Hampton.
How long did that go on before you stopped? And tell them why you stopped.
I I worked there with them on and off, like I said, not on and off, I shouldn't say that, every 2 to 3 days, you know, or it wasn't a daily thing at that point. Then I did go probably about maybe, I can't recall, it was a few months later or a couple weeks later. There was an incident at the house, and somebody had tried to burn the house. So that's when I actually went and started helping her more full-time, because she had to go through a lot of the damages and all that. I helped her document a lot of whatever damages were done from the diesel and stuff that was spilled all throughout the house by the individual.
And maybe I wasn't clear in my question. Did there come a point where you had some health issues?
Yes, sir. At one point, I suffered a stroke, and I had to stop working and go through rehab for a while.
And what year was that? 17 and 18, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So prior to your stroke, and you had to go to rehab, how long did you work for the Murdaughs?
It was a few years by then.
How long were you out after you had your stroke, Blanca?
Maybe almost 4 years.
Did there come a point where you went back and started working with Alex, with the Murdaugh family?
Yes, sir.
And tell these folks when that was.
Shortly after the boating accident, I reached out to Alex and Maggie, and I told them if they needed anything that they could call on me. And at that point, Maggie said that she would like for me to come back if I was able to. So I told her I would. At that point, I was feeling better, so I told her that I would go back. And once I went back, it was like I actually never left.
I was just informed the stroke was in 2015, not 2017. I
Yes, sir.
apologize.
Yes, sir.
So after your recovery, you started working and actually called them, the Murdaugh family, and said, if y'all need anything.
If y'all need anything, you know, I'm here.
And I don't think anybody will dispute that was in February of 2019.
Yes, sir.
Time period?
Yes, sir.
So when you went back to work with the family after the boating accident, tell these folks, what were your duties then? What was your job?
I started right back at the same thing. I was helping with the cleaning. I was helping running errands. I would cash checks. I would, and what I say by cashing checks for Maggie, sometimes she didn't have time or she was busy doing other things, so she would send me to the bank to cash checks, to pay the people that she had working around the house. The main.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. The maintenance line, you know, that sort of thing, whatever she was doing around the house.
And where were they living, the Murdaugh family, at this point in 2019?
Both places,
Okay, tell the folks where both places.
Moselle and Hampton.
So you're working at both residences?
Yes, sir, both.
And did there come a time where they moved exclusively for the primary residence to, well, where was their primary residence?
Their primary residence was Holly Street, and once they sold the house, they moved straight into Moselle, full-time.
We hadn't heard much about Maggie, and I'm limited what I can say in a murder case, but did y'all get fairly close?
Yes, sir.
And when you had quit working for her and you had your stroke, did you ever see her during that time period when you weren't working for her?
Yes, sir. Maggie would, I would see her in town, and she would often signal me to pull over. So we just used to stop sometimes and just talk and see how things were going at the local CVS.
Just to catch up?
just to catch up and see how everybody was doing.
And prior, when you were working and after, would you, and I'm not asking you to say what, but y'all got close and would talk personal things?
Yes, sir.
I'd like for you to go back in your mind now and take this jury back to June 7th, 2021.
Yes, sir.
You were working there for the Murdaughs then?
Yes, sir.
That's a Monday. Do we all know that, June 7th?
Yes, sir.
When had you worked prior to that? At
At-
the Moselle property for them?
Friday.
And at that point, had you seen, what family members did you see at Moselle on Friday, which would have been the June 4th of 2021? Do you remember?
Paul.
And what was your interaction with Paul that day?
Paul walked through the door, his usual self. I was walking out of the laundry room, coming into the kitchen, and Paul came in the front door, and he was holding a laundry basket full of clothes. And as he was approaching me, he saw me, and he said, "What's up, Miss B?" And I just looked at him. I said, "Boy," I said, "if you got all them dirty clothes and you want me to take care of that," I said, "I'm getting ready to leave." He's like, "Oh, come on, Miss B, you can help me out." He said, "I need them for the weekend." I said, "Well, just pull a couple of them out, what you need, and I'll take care of it." And I ended up staying late to make sure that he had his clothing ready for the weekend.
So did you wash the clothes for the entire family? Was that part of your,
Yes, sir, I did.
and did Paul leave that Friday?
Yeah, I saw him leave. I don't know whether he was actually gone for the weekend or if he was still.
Did you ever see him again?
No, sir.
Did you have regular hours in June of 2021 that you worked at Moselle for the Murdaugh family?
They weren't really set hours. Maggie was pretty, she was just easygoing. If I had stuff to do, if I had stuff to take care of, she wasn't really too keen on any specific hours. So, you know, if I had a doctor's appointment or if I had anything, she'd be like, okay, no, her main comment to me always was no worries,
No worries.
no worries.
Well, June 7th specifically, were you scheduled to work at Moselle?
Yes, sir.
And did you have contact with Miss Maggie Murdaugh sometime prior to getting to Moselle that morning?
Yes, sir.
And I think it's in evidence, but tell these folks what contact you had with her.
She
Type of contact.
she texted me and asked me if I could stop at the grocery store on my way to Moselle because Alex wanted some Capri Suns.
Wanted some what?
Capri Suns.
Okay.
And she said apple and I believe she said pineapple first and then they changed. She came back with another text and said, no, he wants orange, I believe that's what he said. That's what the text said. I'm not.
And did you try to get some orange Capri Suns?
Yes. Sir.
Where'd you go?
I went to the Food Lion.
And were you successful in your search for
No,
orange
sir.
Capri Suns?
No, sir.
I shared what's marked States 54, Sparker. Excuse me, Defendants 54 for the record. Did you have any other text with Miss Maggie before you got to Moselle?
Yes, Maggie told me she had to go to a doctor's appointment, and she said that in the text, Maggie said, Alec wants me to come home. And she said, and in a phone conversation, she told me, she said, I left some food in the refrigerator. Is there any way that you can cook? Paul likes the way you cook. So she said, because I don't think I'll be back in time. So I said, yeah, sure. I said, I'll do it. So it was nothing. I finished what I was doing, and then I started cooking, making sure the meal was ready for when Paul and they arrived at home. Well, that afternoon. And we had another conversation on the phone where she told me, she said, Alec wants me to come home. And she kind of sounded like she didn't want to come home. Because she really liked being at Edisto. And they had a lot of work that was going on, and she was trying to make sure everything was ready for the 4th of July gathering that she was planning. So she was very detail orientated, so she wanted everything perfect. So she was kind of, she sounded like she was a little disappointed. And then she said, well, Alec asked Paul to come home too, because he's got to fix the mess up out there that that CB had done.
That CB Road?
Yes, sir. And he said Alec had told Paul to come and fix it because they were planning on having a hunt that weekend, so he wanted everything ready and good to go.
So he'd asked Maggie to come, and then he had asked Alex to come.
That's what
Excuse
Maggie.
me, Paul to come.
Paul. That's what Maggie told me over the phone.
And looking at Defendants 54, can you read that? Text?
He said, thank you, I'm waiting at doctor. Alex wants me to come home. I had to leave. Door open at Edisto, but trust Mexicans to shut and lock for me. His dad is back in the hospital. The last doctor claims not cancer, it's pneumonia. And then she's got some emojis. She said, Alec is about to die. Hope he doesn't go down there to sleep. Needs to take care of himself as well.
And when she said, I trust the Mexicans to leave the door open, that didn't bother you?
No, sir.
Okay. When she said, I guess my question is, you said you didn't think she wanted to.
Mr. Miller, you're standing in front of the jurors.
I apologize. When you had just testified you didn't think she wanted to come home, was work being done at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
And did she like being at Edisto?
Yes, sir, she did.
And when would she stay at Edisto?
Any chance she had.
Where was a time of year that she liked being there more than other times?
Yes, sir. Come around spring, summer, she preferred to be in Edisto.
And I guess, was she at Edisto the night, Sunday night, do you know? Where was she Sunday night?
I'm not sure.
Unless she knows.
She can answer if she knows.
I'm not sure.
Were you on schedule June 7th time-wise? Were you running late? What time were you supposed to be there?
I didn't have a set time to be there.
After you and Maggie talked and texted, did you go to Moselle?
Yes, I did.
And when you got there, was Maggie there?
No, sir. She had just left.
Was Paul there?
No.
Was defendant Alex Murdaugh there?
Yes, he was.
Okay. When you walked in the house, was he up?
No, sir, he was in bed.
Based on the time you spent there and your experience with the defendant, Alex Murdaugh, was he a morning person?
No, sir.
No. How long were you there working before you saw Alex Murdaugh? That morning on June 7th of 21?
Probably a couple hours.
And can you tell these folks, did there come a point that morning where he left the house? Alex Murdaugh, did he leave and go to work or wherever?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And can you tell them what he was wearing, Alex Murdaugh, best of your memory, when he left Moselle?
He had a pair of khaki pants, a greenish, I call it seafoam color, polo shirt, and he put a sports coat, a blue sports coat over it. And he put his shoes on, which were usually right there next to a dresser that they had right there in the living room area. That's where his shoes used to go, right there, so he just used to kind of slide his shoes on his way out the door.
Do you remember what type of shoes he had on June 7th, 2021, when he left?
His regular work shoes, the brown, there was a pair of brown leather shoes.
Was it a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt he left on?
The polo's a short sleeve shirt.
And staying out of everybody's view, do you remember anything specifically about that shirt?
As he put his coat on, he was putting his shoes on, and he was putting his coat on, and he was getting ready to walk out. He turned around, and I said, Alec, I said, hold on a minute. I said, your collar's sticking up. So he turned around, and I fixed his collar inside his jacket because one collar was sticking up.
So
on
you
his shirt.
actually helped, I'm sorry, but you helped move his shirt?
Yeah, yes, I did.
And you said it was a long or short sleeve, I'm sorry.
That polo is a short sleeve,
And did it have buttons on part of it, or do you know?
just from here to here.
And was it a blue blazer
It was,
on top of it?
it was a dark color.
He put a tie on? He didn't have a tie with that on?
No, sir.
I just. There's ties anymore. Now, Miss Maggie had asked you to fix dinner for the family. Did you do that?
I did.
Can you tell them what you made?
She called it steak burger, but it's cube steak and gravy, some white rice, and some green beans.
You're a good cook, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Did you see or talk to Maggie ever again after this text or this phone call?
Before I left Moselle, I texted her and I said the dinner was on the, I believe I texted to the effect that I left dinner on the stove for them. And that I can't really remember the text, but I did text her and let her know that the dinner was ready and that I was leaving.
And you said one of her phrases she used is "no worries." Had she said that to you that day?
Yes.
When was that? It doesn't matter.
I can't remember.
You got a family of your own, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you, when you left Moselle, what did you do?
Pick up my son at school.
And your husband's working,
Yes,
law
sir.
enforcement?
Yes, sir.
And when you got home that night, did anybody call you that night?
No,
When did you hear about the murder at Moselle of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh?
the next morning when I was getting ready to go out there.
The next morning.
Yes, sir.
How did you hear?
Alex called me.
And what did he tell you? He didn't call, he called you the next morning.
He called me early the next morning.
And what did he say to you?
And he sounded shaky on the phone. You could tell he was, his voice sounded really shaky. And he said, B, they're gone, they're gone. And my initial thought was, did she go back to Ediston? That thought didn't cross my mind that he meant that they were dead at that time.
You just didn't comprehend what
No,
was
sir,
going on?
I did not. So he told me again, he said, no, B, they're dead. And at that point, I don't remember because I believe I dropped the phone, my husband got the phone. I don't remember after that.
You literally dropped the phone.
Yes,
And did your husband get on the phone?
I don't remember. I don't remember. All I remember is when he said that they were dead, I dropped the phone. And I believe I said, I'll be right over. I'll be right over.
Did he, the defendant Alex Murdaugh, tell you which way to go when you got to the house?
He said him and Buster were at Alameda, so I told him I was going to Alameda. You know, I wanted to make sure they were okay, and so I went from my house to Alameda. And then when I got ready to leave Alameda, he said, well, when you go to the house, go in the front because there's a lot of sled agents by the kennels. You can't go in that way. And he said, just try to straighten up the way Maggie liked everything, you know, in the house. He said, you knew her the best. He said, you know how she likes stuff. So I did. I went to the house.
So you went to
I went to Moselle from Alameda.
Alameda to start with.
Yes, I did, to check on my Buster and Alec.
To comfort him.
Yes, sir.
And at his request, you went to Moselle to start cleaning up and getting the house in order?
Yes, sir. He said there was going to be people probably stopping by and bringing food and stuff. He said, I just want the house to look the way Maggie would like for it to look. So I said, okay. And I went to the house.
Did you have a usual way that you went in to Moselle, entrance-wise?
From the house, I would, if I was coming from my house, I would come in on the, I call it the Miley's side. So I would actually enter the property through the kennels. And if I was coming from Hampton, or if I, you know, in the other direction, then I would use the front entrance. But normally, I use the kennel entrance coming from my house.
When you got to Moselle, we're now on the morning of June 8th, right, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anybody in the property before you got to the main house?
No, sir.
And when you got to the main house, take us right there. Like right now, as you're walking in the house, what were your observations?
It was hard because I know she wasn't going to be coming back. And I didn't want to move. I didn't want to move her stuff. It was just a weird feeling going through when I unlocked the front door to get in. It felt cold.
You really cared for her, didn't you?
I did.
What'd you do when you got inside?
When I got inside, I didn't turn on any lights. I didn't do anything. I walked through the front door and I went in the kitchen. And I was kind of, when I looked in the kitchen, I kind of just stopped in my tracks and I looked at the stove. And I was kind of, I don't know what the word is. when I looked and I noticed the stove, that there was no pots on the stove, it was kind of unusual, because usually when they ate dinner the night before, the pots usually stayed on the stove. Very, very seldom would she put, certain meals in the refrigerator. A lot of times it was just left on the stove until the next day. And the pots were not in the sink, and they were not on the stove. And then as I walked through, if you walk through the kitchen, like you're going from the kitchen, if you walk through the kitchen, if you go to the left, there's two freezer and a refrigerator, and the laundry room sat right there to the left. There's a back door to the back porch, and then there's the laundry room door. They're both right there. And as I turned to go to the laundry room, I noticed that her pajamas were in the middle of the doorway, right in the middle, laid neatly in the middle of the doorway going into the laundry room. It was her pajama pants, a pair of underwear, and her pajama top.
Was that unusual?
That was very unusual. Because she wouldn't lay her clothes out like that, not in the middle of the door like that. It just didn't look right to me.
And you took care of the house?
Yes.
You took care of the clothes?
Yes.
And not to get too personal, but sometimes you can't help it. Were the underwear there with the pajamas unusual?
Yes.
Why?
She didn't wear underwear with her pajamas.
No underwear with pajamas. But that struck you.
No underclothes with the pajamas.
But that struck you as unusual. They were there with the pajamas.
Yes, sir, because the underwear appeared to be clean, not dirty. They still had like fold marks.
And the pots, and I may have just missed it. You said, where were the pots when you found them?
After I looked at the pajamas on the floor, the way that they were set, I turned around and I said, well, I wonder where the pots are. So I opened the refrigerator door, and the pots were sitting inside the refrigerator with lids on them. And I was like, who did this? I don't know at that point, but that was not normal for the whole pot to be sitting in the fridge.
Did you make any other observations in the house, the bathroom, or anywhere else?
In the master bathroom was her clothes were sitting next to the tub. It was a small pile of clothes right there next to the tub. And by the shower, if you walk in the master bedroom, there's a big garden tub, spa type tub. And then right here is the shower, and there's a window. On the floor next to the shower was a slight puddle of water, a towel, and a pair of khaki pants. And then as I went to the left to see if there was anything else that was out, I looked in the closet, and in the closet was a white damp towel on the floor, and there was I'm pretty sure the t-shirt was white at one time, but they get kind of dingy after a few years. But it appeared that a t-shirt had fallen off of the stack of t-shirts that were on top of the shelf right there in the closet. It was laying on the floor next to the towel.
When you took care of the home, was that, tell us how the clothes were laid out, the shirts, the shorts, were you saying up on the shelf, or the shirts?
In the closet, there was a shelf. There was some shelves, smaller shelves right here, and then there was some long ones. Maggie used to keep her clothes on these. And then there was a shorter one, kind of like little box looking, up. Alex used to keep his clothes, his belts and stuff in that. And then on top, there was also an area where he kept T-shirts. They were folded and they were kept on the shelf.
When you say T-shirts, I know what a T-shirt is, but I mean, were they T-shirts like I'm wearing right now, or were they T-shirts with pockets?
It was usually, they would be T-shirts, like if they would go, like when you go to a restaurant and they have like the logo of those type of T-shirts. He had a big collection of those.
And would you put them on the shelf?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you iron T-shirts?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you washed all the clothes?
Yes, I did.
Did he have a certain place that he kept shorts versus long pants?
Yes, sir. When you walk in the master bedroom, when you enter the master bedroom, the bed was right here. At the foot of the bed, you had a dresser here and a dresser here. The right dresser on the top drawers were usually his underwear, his socks. The next drawer was his T-shirts. On the bottom drawer were the pajama pants that he would wear or his shorts that he would wear to sleep in. In the left drawer, and one sits on this side of the door going into the bathroom, and the other one's right here. On the left dresser, he kept his white T-shirts that he would wear under when he wore a suit. He would wear, the T-shirts were in one of those drawers. And then the other two drawers were shorts. The dressier shorts, and then the not so dressier shorts. You know that.
So you testified a shirt looked like it had fallen when you saw it this morning?
Yes, sir.
June 8th, 2021, okay. Was it still clean?
Yes, sir.
Did you put it back?
Yes, sir.
My boss, Don Zelenka, just reminded me that the food that you cooked, did you look and see how much was eaten in the pots?
No, sir, I did not.
Now, you said there was a damp towel. Where was that?
In the closet, on the floor.
And I know what damp means, but when you touched it, did it feel?
It was damp.
Okay. What did you do with it?
Took it to the laundry room.
And you said there were some pants there.
Yes, sir, there's a pair of khakis by the shower.
And what'd you do with those?
Took them to the laundry room.
Did you wash them?
Yes, sir.
Can we go to the?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand for a moment. Please do not discuss the case. Please do not discuss your testimony. We'll take about 10 minutes.
Be seated.
You may bring the jury. Thank you. You may proceed. Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Waters, if you all would be seated.
Ms. Simpson,
Yes, sir.
I think where we left off, let me kind of try to refocus myself. I'm going to show you what's entered as State 7. Just, can you see those pants in State 7?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize those
Can't
pants?
hear your response.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You recognize those pants in State 7?
Yes, sir.
How do you know those? How do you recognize them?
I took care of the laundry.
Have you cleaned them?
Yes, sir.
Where were these pants kept in State 7?
The left dresser and the third drawer, third or fourth drawer.
You know
They
that?
weren't, they weren't in the ones where, he had one drawer with shorts that he would usually wear on the weekends, you know, the dressier ones. Those were kept in the drawer underneath that specific drawer.
So you know what drawers these were in?
Yes,
If you know from being there and taking care of the clothes and taking care of the family, were these shorts you like to wear a lot or not? Did you see him in these shorts much?
no,
And were these shorts clean the last time you saw them?
yes,
Now this shirt that's also in States 7. Had you seen that shirt before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was this shirt kept in the closet at Moselle?
The top shelf, above where his clothes hang, the top shelf. There was a shelf up there.
And you testified it looked like a shirt had fallen from that shelf when you got there on the morning of June 8th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was this shirt kept in that same place as the shirt that had fallen?
Yes, sir.
And the shirt that had fallen, what did you do with it after you picked it up?
I folded it back up and I placed it back on the shelf.
Was it clean?
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
I understand that you all are apparently having a personal conversation, but you need to speak into the mic.
Yes, sir.
All right, look at me this way, I'm sorry. Had you cleaned this shirt that's in State 7 prior to June 7th of 2021?
I probably did.
And where would it have been placed after you cleaned it? Where would you have put it?
Up in the closet if there was no more room in the drawer.
Now, could we please play States 306, please? Can you see, would you look right there at your monitor? Is there fixing that when Mr. Mark? Okay, you freeze it right there.
Yes, sir.
Now, this, who's in the picture?
Alex,
And can you tell what kind of pants he's got on?
khaki pants.
Okay. Can you tell what kind of shoes he's got on from that, Miss Simpson?
It appears to be a pair of loafers,
Loafers.
house shoes, loafers.
Okay, well, tell me what you mean by house shoes.
Just his shoes that he would usually wear around the house if he was wearing shoes.
So would he usually just wear them inside?
Yes, sir.
But these appear to be those shoes.
It appears to be, yes.
And this shirt that Alex Murdaugh is wearing on June 7th, depicted in States 306, had you seen that shirt prior to June 7th?
It was in the closet,
Okay. And what type of shirt is that?
the Columbia shirt.
Columbia shirt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many of those type shirts did he have?
He had a few in the closet,
And what color is that shirt?
just like a greenish aqua seafoam color.
Why do you keep using the term seafoam? I'm not fussing, I'm just asking.
The term seafoam, when Maggie was looking at different color palettes to paint, that color came up in one of the color palettes, so we would refer to it as a seafoam. But that's the term that was used for that color in one of the color palettes that she had.
After June 7th of 2021, did you ever see that shirt again?
No, sir. There was like a pink one, a white one, a baby blue in the closet. I do not remember that shirt being in there.
And on June 8th of 2021, in the morning hours when you came back over there, was that shirt there?
No, sir.
Were these shoes that you called house slippers, were those there?
No, sir.
Did you ever see those house shoes again?
No, sir.
And where did he usually keep them?
In the closet.
Did he have any other type shoes canvas or any kind of boat shoes?
He had a lot of shoes in the closet.
Do you remember any shoes that were canvas type shoes?
The boat shoes, like the Sperry,
Spirit shoes?
yes, sir.
And do you remember those?
Yes, sir. They used to sit in the closet.
They used to sit in the closet. After June 7th of 2021, did you ever see those Sperry boat shoes again?
No, sir, I do not recall seeing them in the closet.
Never, ever.
No, sir.
Did you stay on and work for a period of time for Alex Murdaugh at the Moselle?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did your day-to-day functions change after June 7th as far as Moselle itself?
Yes, sir, they did.
Well, tell them how that happened and what the change was.
After Maggie and Paul were killed, Alec did not stay on the property. On the 10th, when I believe his father passed away, after
Mr.
the
Murdaugh.
yes, I believe after the service that we had for him at the cemetery, Alec called and asked if my husband and I would stay on the property because him and Buster were not going to be able to stay there. So we agreed to take care of the property and maintain it while he said until he decides what he's going to do with it.
And did in fact you and your husband start residing there for a period of time?
We did.
And what, were you paid for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, do you mind telling them how much?
He would give me $1,500 a week to make sure that anything needed for the farm was taken care of, and my husband and I would maintain cutting the grass on that property, which is a lot of grass out there, and it would take in excess of 2 days to cut.
Would you cut it?
Yes, sir. I would help my husband.
Were you also taking care of the dogs?
Yes, sir.
Tell these folks what were the dogs' names?
Grady and Bubba.
Grady and Bubba.
Yes, sir.
You fed them?
Yes, sir.
Took care of them?
Yes, sir.
Where is Bubba? What's today? Whatever today is, where's Bubba today?
He's with me.
So you have Bubba in your home.
Yes, sir, I do.
Did Bubba have his own pen?
Yes, he did.
And I don't know if you've seen, but at some point, and I'll keep going to the video of, well, could we play that now, please, when we get it to the video, the film video, please? Was it? And Craig, before we get there, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to this real quick. Is that the shirt he left for the office in that day?
No, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Had you ever seen Bubba with an animal in his mouth?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell him about that, please. Please do.
When Bubba was running around, if I or anybody, if the chickens were running out of the coop, he would chase the chickens and he would just go after the chickens or the guineas, whatever was out there.
And would you ever catch him?
Yes, he would.
And how would the chicken get out of Bubba's mouth? And
You have to make several attempts to get the chicken out of his mouth, and at points he would growl at you if you tried to take his toy. Basically, that's what he.
in your experience in being there, was it easier for a family member or somebody Bubba knew to get the chicken out?
If he's stubborn. Yes, sir.
But would it take a period of time to get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
Yes, it would.
August of 2021. Ms. Blanca,
Yes, sir.
did you have a conversation with Alex Murdaugh about a shirt?
Yes, I did.
And let's go back. Where did this take place?
At the little house.
All right. What do you mean, the little house?
After Paul and Maggie were killed, Alec was not staying at Moselle. My husband and I were, and he would often stay in different places. But all his clothes and toiletries and everything were placed in the house that sits between Mr. Johnny Parker and his brother Randy. There's a small 2-bedroom house right there, and that's where all his belongings at the time went.
And where is that located?
In Hampton.
Okay, Hampton. And who furnished this little house with clothes and toiletries and made sure stuff was there?
I did.
And who was Alex Murdaugh staying there with when he stayed there, if anybody?
He never stayed there. He would just go and get his clothing and eat whatever, if he would have a snack or something. He wasn't really eating.
Well, during the month of August, do you remember him having a conversation with you about a shirt?
Yes, sir.
Did you find that to be unusual?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell them what the conversation was and why you found it unusual. Please.
He walked in to the little house, and I was getting ready to leave, and he said, "B, I need to talk to you." And he said, "Come here, sit down." So I went in the living room. I sat down, and he was pacing back and forth in the living room. And he said, "I got a bad feeling." He said, "I got a bad feeling." He said, "Something's not right." And then he said, "Well, there's a video. There was a video that was out. I hadn't seen a video." And he said, "You remember the shirt I was wearing, that Vinnie Vine shirt?" That's what he said to me. And in my mind, I was saying, I don't remember a Vinnie Vine's shirt. It was the polo shirt. But I didn't mention. He said, "Well, you know what? I was wearing that shirt." He said, in the that day. And still, I was just, I didn't say anything, but I was kind of thrown back because I don't remember that. I don't remember him wearing that shirt that day when he left. I know what shirt he was wearing because I fixed the collar, and the collar's a different material.
And I don't know what a Vinnie Vine shirt is. But when he left that day, was he wearing a Vinnie Vine shirt? Or was he wearing the collar you've described?
It was a polo shirt.
Polo shirt. Just using your common sense, did it appear to you he was trying to tell you to say, "I was wearing the shirt"?
Objection is sustained. That's a formal question.
How did you take that conversation?
I felt confused at first, and then I know what he was wearing the day he left the house, and I was basically confused. I didn't really know whether he was trying to get me to say that shirt, if I was to be asked that if that was a shirt he was wearing the day.
Ms. Blanca. 7 for ID only. Do you recognize these, and do they relate to your testimony without saying what they are?
Yes.
On September 4th of 2021, did you have a conversation with defendant Alex Murdaugh?
I did.
Okay. And what did he ask you to do?
He asked me to send him a photo of the insurance cards.
And do you know what day of the week that was? I'll go back here so you can talk, I'm sorry.
I don't remember the day. All I know was it's on my phone.
He asked you to send him a copy of his medical card?
Oh, it was on a Saturday morning, because the next day was my daughter's birthday. Early that morning when he called me, he asked me, when I sent him the picture of the plastic insurance card, he said, no, I need the cardboard one. Well, the cardboard one was in Maggie's purse. It wasn't in the area where I usually kept the cards in the cabinet. So I told him, I said, it's in Maggie's purse. He said, well, go ahead and get the cards and send me a picture of them. And I asked him if he was okay, and he said, well, I'm just getting some routine exams done, he said, and I need the number so I could go ahead and schedule these appointments. And it was a Saturday, because I was thinking, where's he gonna go to get appointments done on a Saturday? But I didn't say anything. I went and I took pictures, and I sent him all the copies of the cards that I found.
Your Honor, we'd offer say 455, 457.
First of all, he consulted with me about this as he walked up to me a moment ago. I don't quite understand the relevance. Why him asking for, you want to tell me? I'm sorry, if he would just consult with me for a moment and tell me what the relevance is, but he hadn't told me.
With your permission?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Your Honor, we sort of just talked surprised.
That's 455, 457 without objection.
Reserving our previously made objections, I apologize.
What previous objection? What previous objection? You said reserving your previous
I apologize, I'm just so used to saying that. I apologize. I had no previous made objection to this document concerning this issue. I apologize.
Did it without objection. There you are.
455, I'll stand right here, okay? Were you texting with Alex Murdaugh about sending these cards?
Yes, I was.
And that's the text, and is that his medical card you sent him a picture of?
One of the medical cards I sent him a picture of, yes.
Please listen to me carefully, don't go any farther than my answer I ask, okay?
Yes, sir.
After this date, September 4th of 2021, did you and your husband quit living at Moselle?
We did.
A couple other questions, and I know everybody glad I'm sitting down. In addition to cleaning the house, did you ever look at Maggie's Mercedes to try to clean it afterwards?
I did.
What, if anything, did you find?
As I was cleaning the vehicle, removing her,
I would object unless she gives a date, or at least a range of dates.
Do you remember when that was?
that was about a week after.
Okay. After the murders? When did you, do you remember when you cleaned her car?
I cleaned the car when they asked me to pick it up from the impound sheriff's department.
And who asked you to pick it up?
Randy and his wife had dropped off Paul's truck, and they were getting ready to leave to go out of town. So he asked if my husband and I could go pick up the Mercedes from the impound and bring it back to the house.
And did you clean it after that?
I did.
And what did you find, if anything?
Well, she still had paint for the Edisto house that she was trying to touch up some areas at the house in Edisto. She had some pillows that she was gonna return. And as I moved the seat to clean, to vacuum underneath the driver's side seat, I found her ring.
Or what?
Her ring. Her wedding band.
Now, did Maggie, based on your time with her and experience, like being at Moselle by herself?
No.
And leading up to the murders, was she anxious about anything?
She had a conversation with me. A few months prior. I walked in the house and Maggie said, "Hey, Blanc," she said, "I got to talk to you. I got something to tell you." And so she said, "Let me make some coffee." And she went and made a pot of coffee. She made me a cup, she made herself a cup, and we went. She said, "Let's go talk." And we went into the hunting room, and she closed the door, because Alec was sleeping in the bedroom, which is on the other side of the house, but she closed the door. When Maggie closed the door,
You're said.
Response?
Judge, I think, was she anxious about money issues?
Your Honor, I object to.
Well, I know you objected, and
But he is.
I understand your objection. Well, I don't care what you're doing. There's an objection to the previous question. The objection is sustained. While entertaining the objection, you cannot pose another question. The objection is sustained.
I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I hesitate, but this is a matter that needs to be put on the record.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're having you go to the jury room. Please not discuss the case. Yes, sir. If everyone will be seated. Yes.
I objected to a conversation. We're aware of that conversation, but I objected knowing where he was going, which was, and in that same interview, by the way, that she gave about a statement where Maggie said that she was concerned about money, she also indicated Maggie was never concerned about money. Either way, it's hearsay. He said before Your Honor ruled, was she concerned about money or wasn't she concerned about money? He testified, which is to hearsay. I would move for mistrial. I think it's unduly prejudicial based on the last 3 weeks we've heard of financial misconduct on part of the defendant. I would move for mistrial. I would move that it's not mistrial because I don't think, even if you give this jury an instruction, you can't unring the bell. You can't correct that. And now I've had to draw attention to it, even more so by objecting to it. He knew that was wrong. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Meadows.
Your Honor, and for the record, I apologize for that question. I don't have to say it. I'm
Well,
sorry.
we're not here about apologies. Go ahead.
And I can't help it.
Yes, sir.
Judge, under 803, and what I should have brought to the court's attention first, 803.3, we think this would be admissible. Hearsay exception, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. The statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition. We think it fits under that rule. How she was, and that's all I was going to listen. That's it. I won't go, and hearsay was coming out a little bit there. A lot of hearsay's come out, Mr. Riley. Wasn't objected, it just was rolling. I wasn't trying to plan that far ahead. But I do think respectfully it comes in there, we'd like you to consider under 8033, Judge. And that's what I should have said before I asked the question. Again, for the record, say I'm sorry.
8033, the following are not excluded by the hearsay rule even though the declarant is available as a witness. A statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition, such as intent, plan, motive, design, mental feelings, pain, and bodily health, but not including a statement of memory or belief to prove the fact remembered or believed, unless it relates to the execution, revocation, identification, or terms of declarant's will. All right, Mr. Harpootlian?
Obviously, Your Honor, I don't think that's covered by 803.
Why not?
Well, because it's the declarant's, and maybe we need to ask her exactly what she said before you rule on that. The only testimony we've heard on that point is his.
We heard a question, then an objection, and then another question while the court was listening to your objection.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have a proffer of this testimony and see where it's going.
Was Maggie Murdaugh anxious of anything in the days leading up to murder that she expressed to you?
Yes, sir.
Please tell the judge what it was.
She was worried because a lawsuit had been presented stating that they wanted $30 million. Maggie was crying. Maggie said, we don't have that kind of money, Blanc. And that's what she used to call me. She said, we don't have that. She said, if I could give them everything that I got and make this go away, she said, I would do it in a heartbeat. She said, I'll start over. We'll start over. She said, I just want it gone.
This moment, we're listening to a proffer. Go ahead.
Would that be instead of that long, would that be like money issues that she was worried about?
The money issues dealing with the lawsuit.
And Your Honor, that's all I was going to offer her. I asked for money issues. I wasn't looking to even go in detail on what she said there, that long colloquy.
Yes, sir.
I don't quite understand how this fits into, first, what you allowed in under 403, 404B, and race gesture. Right. It is her perception that the lawsuit, for $30 million, putting financial stress on her. There's not any. She's not relating that Alex has any stress on him. He's the one on trial. Her perception that the $30 million was concerning her. I mean, she's not accused. That is, Maggie Murdaugh is not the defendant here. There's no connecting it to the defendant. I don't understand not only is it hearsay, it's not relevant to the issues being litigated here. Her state of mind on financial issues. I don't know how that relates.
Anything further?
No, sir.
We've had testimony elicited by the defense throughout the trial from witnesses portraying the family as a loving and happy marriage. Question posed to Mr. Gibson, I believe it was, and to the other friend of Paul's and Buster's, as to whether the family was anxious or seemed to have any concerns or issues going on at the time. And I find that this testimony properly responds to that testimony, and the objection is overruled. Anything else? All right, let's take a 1-minute stretch before the jury comes back. denying the objection, the motion for mistrial is also, the motion is denied. You bring the jury back. All right, thank you. The last objection is overruled, and you may proceed.
Ms. Simpson, in the days leading up to the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh, based on your time with her, was Maggie Murdaugh anxious about anything?
She was concerned about the amount of money that they were requesting on the lawsuit. 30 million is what she told me.
We're going to show you what's marked 297.
You pose a question. There's an objection. The court overruled the objection. And do you want the witness to answer the question that you posed?
Yes, sir. I cheated.
Well, you posed a separate question.
Yes, sir. And I thought she had answered. You said she was worried about 30 million. Can you explain that more?
That wasn't your question. That there was an objection to. Do you withdraw the question that you posed prior to the court's ruling on the objection?
No, sir.
Or you
No.
forgot the question?
To the world, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
All right, proceed.
What was she anxious about?
She said she knew the amount of money that they were asking, but she felt that Alec was not being truthful to her with regard to what exactly was going on with that lawsuit. She said, he doesn't tell me everything.
Excuse me, entered as 297.
Get up, get up. Quit, Cash. Quit. It's okay. Quit. Get. Hey, he got burgers now. Hey, Bob. It's a guinea. This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quit.
Ms. Blanca, had you seen that before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think maybe in prior statements or something that, do you recognize voices on there?
Yes, sir.
Who do you recognize?
It's Paul, Maggie, Alec.
And then previously, have you said, in a memo or a memorandum in interviews that you thought you may have heard another voice?
Yes, sir, I did, at a distance.
But having listened to it again, have you listened to it this week? I mean, it's not on TV, have you seen it?
I have. There's only 3 voices, Alec, Maggie, and Paul.
So after hearing it several times, is that your conclusion?
Yes, sir.
Just a few more questions. Would Miss Maggie Murdaugh, did she go down to the kennels at night by herself?
No, sir.
And you say that emphatically. What, do you know that?
She was scared. It got dark out there.
So would she go down there by herself?
No.
Did she like to go down there when it wasn't dark?
She did.
And did she like playing with the dogs?
She always took the dogs with her.
Which dogs were hers?
Grady and Bubba were always with her.
Okay. So when she was at Edisto, where would Grady and Bubba be?
She would, sometimes she would take both of them, but the majority of the time, in the last few months, she was alternating. She would take one or if not the other.
Can you tell us about the defendants? Did you ever see him with his cell phone? Alex Murdaugh, did you ever see him use his cell phone?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury his habits with the cell phone? Would he have it a lot? Did he use it a lot?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay.
He was always on his phone.
Say that again?
He was always on his phone.
Paul, were you familiar with his habits regarding cell phones?
Not, the times that he was there at the house, he was always on his phone. If he'd go in the shower or whatever, he'd play his country music on the phone. But that's the extent that I know from what I observed being there in the house.
And when you were on June 8th, and you've talked about it, and I'm not trying to rehash that, but on June 8th of 2021, when you went to clean up the house, is that pretty much what you saw in the bathroom, the pants and the damp towel?
Yes, so there was a rug right as you step out of the shower, and there was like a slight puddle of water, a towel, a white towel, and then a pair of khaki pants.
But you didn't see any bloody clothes or anything like that?
No, sir.
Beg the court's indulgence, just a few seconds, Judge. Did this, I'm sorry, Judge. Is the individual in states? Is that individual in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would you please, is it Alex Murdaugh sitting between Mr. Harper?
Sitting
and
right
Mr.
there. Yes, sir.
And the record is reflecting. Thank you, Judge. Have you ever seen that shirt again?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Have you ever seen these shoes again that he's wearing here?
No, sir.
And the Sperry cloth, you said the Sperry shoes, have you ever seen those again?
No, sir.
That's all, thank you.
Foundation.
Your Honor. Ma'am, my name's Dick Harpuglia, and I represent the man you know as Alex, right?
Yes, sir, I met you before.
I don't think we've ever met before, have we?
Yes, we did.
We've met?
Yes, sir, at the house. Maggie's funeral.
Oh, at Maggie's funeral, yes. I apologize. a lot of people there that day.
Yes, sir.
Alex has always referred to you when people ask who you are as his friend, correct?
That is correct.
Never called you his housekeeper, right?
That is correct.
He always, when he introduced you, as his friend.
That is correct.
Now, you've also, I think in multiple interviews with Sweat and other folks, described, I think that the words were, Maggie was his all. Isn't that what you told Sweat?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean, Maggie was his all?
He adored her. He loved her. He adored her.
Worshipped her. I mean, just treated her as somebody he adored, correct?
Exactly, yes, sir.
Now, I think they also asked you if you ever saw them have any arguments. And
No, I did not ask that objection.
You restate the question, please.
Sweat asked you if you ever seen them have any arguments. I don't quite understand the basis of the objection, Your Honor.
You restated the question. You may respond.
What was the question again, sir?
Did you ever see them have any arguments?
I never saw them have arguments. It was just minor disagreement because of the remodeling.
And I think you cite specifically, when you said they had arguments, it was about the paint colors, for instance.
One of them was Maggie was set on getting a certain white, and Alec was saying, just get whatever white, basically. You know, he didn't care. She wanted a specific white, and he just didn't care.
But you never saw them have any violent arguments or argue about money or argue about relationships. It was all the minor things that most couples go through, picking paint colors and those kinds of things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. To some, they would disagree on, it wasn't that they disagreed. The only thing that I remember Maggie saying was that she just wanted him to sit still and listen to her for at least 10 minutes at a time because he was always on the go.
Is that an uncommon complaint between husbands and wives or wives to husbands? I want you to just listen to me. Is that right?
She would get frustrated because of that.
Right. Do you ever tell your husband that? Just listen to me. Sit, please.
All the time.
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about the morning of the 7th
Yes, sir.
and then the morning of the 8th, because I understand you left before Paul, Maggie, or Alec was on the Moselle property on the 7th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to talk about those texts in just a minute between you and Maggie, but you fixed some dinner for them.
I did.
And did you set a table, or did they have to go get their own plates and put them out?
No, I left the food on the stove.
Right. And normally, the next day, the pots would still be on the stove, right?
Yes, sir.
Would they clean up their plates or leave those in the sink, or how would that go?
Sometimes the plates would be in the living room. There was no plates in the living room. They were in the sink.
Okay, but when you got there on the morning of the 8th?
The plates were in the sink. They were not in the living room.
Okay, now, are you aware of how many people were in there, how many friends, law partners, his sister, who was in the Moselle house on the night of the 7th?
No, sir.
Okay, if I told you there were 12 to 15 of them, would that surprise you? I mean, Maggie and Paul just been killed. Was he very close with his law partners?
Yes, sir.
Okay, his sister, Lynn, do you know Lynn?
I met her at Maggie's, when Maggie passed.
Okay. And would it surprise you to know that the,
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
I'm just going to ask her if she knows, Your Honor.
Well, the objection is sustained. You cannot testify.
Well, let me make it more general than this. Do you know if anyone that evening of those people moved the food from the stovetop to the refrigerator?
I don't know.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the room, the bedroom, and well, let me ask you this. Let's back off just a little bit. You drove over from his mother and father's house, correct?
That is correct.
That morning, the 8th, to Moselle, right?
Yes, sir.
And instead of coming your normal way, which would have been the entrance by the kennels, where there, did you see all the police down there?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. You drove up to the main entrance that would go straight up to the house, or if you took a right on that road, you'd end up back down at the kennels, right?
Yes, sir.
And you came up that, were there police around the house up there?
Not around the house.
Okay. Did anyone question whether you should go into the house or not?
No, sir.
Was there anybody in the house other than you?
No, sir, it was me.
So did you find it strange that this was a crime scene?
Objection. Need to hear the question.
The question would be, did you find it strange there was no law enforcement present at the house that morning?
That's the question.
Go ahead.
It wasn't strange because there was law enforcement all over on the kennel side. It wasn't strange that they allowed me to go into the house.
Let me ask you this, did anybody from SLED show up while you were there that morning?
I believe there was an officer. I do not recall the officers.
Do you remember somebody coming in to search the house while you were there?
There were several agents that came through.
Right, but you'd been there for a while before they got there?
Yes, sir.
Did they ask you about clothes you'd found, or did they ask you about anything that you found out of the ordinary, anything like that?
I didn't ask any questions. They didn't ask me. They just went about doing what they were doing.
And were they going from room to room? Were they looking for things under the bed? Do you remember?
It appeared that that's what they were doing, sir.
Okay. But that was after you got there and picked up the bathroom, picked up the towel?
No, sir. I hadn't picked up anything at that point because I was still in shock and I was still trying to process what had just happened to my friend.
So they would have seen the khaki pants on the floor.
Objection.
Did they go into the bathroom?
I couldn't tell you, sir. The laundry room sits on the other side of the house, and I had to take some time to process what had happened to Maggie and Paul. I know I saw agents that went upstairs to Paul's room. I saw them walking through the house, sir, but I don't know what they took, what they didn't took. All I can tell you is what I saw when I got there.
Okay. While they're there or after they left, is that when you went into the bathroom and saw the khaki pants, somebody taking a shower, there was a towel on the floor, khaki pants on the floor? Was that before or after they left?
Yeah, after.
Okay. So all those items would have been there for those folks to see, as far as you know? Yes,
sir.
Now, let me ask you a couple of things and about what you saw. They keep showing you this picture by the tree of Alex, and he appears to have on a khaki pair of pants in that picture, correct?
Yes, sir.
And, I'm sure he had a number of different pairs of khaki pants, but were those khaki pants similar to the ones he has on in the picture? Could they be the same ones?
They could be, but he had several.
Right. And in terms of somebody had taken a shower, it looked like there was water on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Now, did Alex take a number of showers every day? Was he a prolific shower taker?
Not that I'm aware. He would get up in the morning, take a shower, and go to work.
But did he take showers other times during the day?
I wasn't there in the evening hours, so I don't know.
Okay. So, but it wasn't unusual for when you got there to find a towel on the floor and water on the floor from him having taken a shower?
That wasn't unusual, no.
Okay. And I think that when you were asked about a shirt, and we can pull this if you want to go back to, whether there was a shirt there also, you said you couldn't remember. Is that correct?
With regard to?
Whether there was a shirt with the khakis on the floor. You said, I couldn't remember.
I could not remember whether there was a shirt with a khaki pants. All I remember is a white damp towel sitting there.
Okay, and the khaki pants?
Yes, sir.
But you don't remember whether, and I think you told the grand jury, I don't remember whether it was a shirt or wasn't a shirt, correct?
That is correct.
And that's today. You can't tell this jury there wasn't a shirt on the floor. You just can't, you can tell them you don't remember, correct?
What was your question?
You can't tell this jury there wasn't a shirt on the floor because you can't remember whether there was a shirt on the floor or not. Isn't that what you told the grand jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we know there's a pair of khaki pants. There may have been a shirt. And those shoes, well, let me ask you this. You know, on the night of the 7th,
Yes, sir.
Alec had left, correct? He wasn't there when you got there the next morning.
No, sir, he wasn't there.
Okay. As a matter of fact, he never spent another night at Moselle that
No,
you
sir, he
knew.
did not.
She knows, Your Honor.
You can answer if you know whether or not he's ever spent another night there.
After the murders, did he ever spend another night at Moselle, to your knowledge?
He did not.
So when he left that night, on the night of the 7th, and went to his mother and father's house, you don't know what clothes he took with him, what shoes he was wearing? You have no idea, correct?
That is correct.
And were you aware that SWED had confiscated the clothes that he had on?
At that moment, I didn't.
Okay. Well, you are now.
Yes, sir, I do know that.
Okay. A white T-shirt, pair of shorts that he showed you, and whatever shoes he had on, some sneakers, right?
I didn't see the sneakers, but I saw the clothing items.
Okay. And so he had to put on, if they did that, other clothes to go over to his mother's house, correct?
Objection.
Would it stand to reason he'd have to put on other clothes or go in his underwear?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay. Do you know what he wore over to his mother's house?
No, sir.
Do you know whether he wore those shoes?
No, sir.
You don't know. So
On objection to, objection
Basis for the objection.
I
To
don't-
which question?
to that last one, shoes. I don't know what specificity he says to those shoes. I don't know what he's.
I'm sorry, the shoes that you say you saw in the Snapchat photo, you say you never saw again, right?
That is correct.
Okay, you don't know whether he wore those shoes the night of the 7th over to his mama's house, do you?
I don't know that. I wasn't
Okay.
there.
You don't know what he wore over there, correct?
That's correct. I wasn't there.
He may have even worn that shirt that you said you never saw again, correct?
Objection.
Objection's overruled.
Right?
Correct?
Okay. Now, if somebody alleged that those khaki pants was what Alex was wearing the night of
I'm
the...
going to object.
I need to hear the question.
I can't finish the question, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Let me state this. If somebody were to say that Alex Murdaugh, as ridiculous as it sounds, was wearing those khaki pants when he...
Objection.
Objection sustained.
Okay. Let me put it this way. Did you see any blood on those khaki pants?
No, sir.
You washed them, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you put anything on them to get blood stains out? I mean, would there be...
Are you insinuating that I removed bloodstains off of khaki pants?
I'm asking you rhetorically. I'm asking you, did you see any blood stains?
There appeared to be no bloodstains on those pants.
Okay. And in the bathroom, did you see any bloody footprints?
I did not.
Did you see any blood on that towel?
No, sir.
Did you see anything indicating to you there'd been anybody wearing bloody shoes or washing blood off, or anything that would indicate that somebody, after a murder, had gone back to that room, changed clothes, covered in blood, took a shower and changed
Objection.
clothes? Did you see anything that would indicate that?
Objection's overruled.
Go ahead.
This is the first time that I have ever been in a situation where somebody was murdered.
Right.
I didn't know, as far as what you're asking me, if there was anything bloody in there. No, it did not appear to be anything bloody in there.
Did you clean the shower that day?
Yes, sir, I rinsed it off.
You rinsed it off. Nobody told you not to rinse off the shower?
No, sir.
Okay. And again, nobody from SWED, as that group went through, asked you, did you see bloody footprints? Did you see any evidence that there was anything bloody in that bathroom? Did anybody ask you that?
No, sir.
And your testimony is those khaki pants were there after SWED left.
Yes, sir.
and maybe even a shirt you can't remember.
Yes, or possibly a T-shirt, but I did not see it. I don't remember.
Okay, you don't remember what kind of shirt, if there was a shirt.
Without objection.
The objection is overruled.
Thank you. Do you remember, I'm doing like Mr. Meadows now, I forgot the question. But let me see if I can get this back on track. These interruptions are getting me a little askew. So, I think you've already asked and answered that. Now, let's talk a little bit about, let me talk a little bit about the cell phone service in Moselle. You had a cell phone?
Yes, sir.
And the servicer was who? What was it, Verizon? Or do you know?
The cell phone carrier is Verizon, yes, sir.
Okay. And so, did you ever have any trouble getting a signal anywhere on the Moselle property? Up at the house, down at the dog kennels? Was it sporadic?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And sometimes you'd be talking to somebody and they'd drop off, or the call would end, not because you ended it, because the service was bad.
Yes, sir, if you were moving around in the house, certain areas, you could not get a signal.
What about down from the kennels?
It was touch and go in the kennels. You really, once you got signal, you better stay where you were at, because if you moved, you were gonna lose your signal.
Okay. So it would not be unusual at the kennels, if you did move, that if you were having a conversation or getting text or trying to answer a text, you wouldn't be able to do so.
Like I said, it depends on where you were. You kind of knew the areas. At least for me, I already knew that if I had to make a call or send a text, I would walk out the kitchen door straight to the edge of the corner right there on the porch and make my call and not move. If not, I would lose the call, or I would not be able to make my call.
What about at the kennels?
At the kennels, like I said, it depends on the area where you were at. And once, basically everybody, we all kind of knew that if you moved out of a certain area and went to another, you were going to lose signal.
Okay. Now, at the kennel, do you know what area you could get a call, keep that? I mean, you just talked about up at the house, there was a sweet spot, if you'll pardon
Yes, sir.
my language. Was there a sweet spot down at the kennel, or do you know?
I'm not sure at the kennels, but I do remember Mr. CB saying that the signal out there was horrible for making calls or getting calls.
Or sending texts or getting texts?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about this conversation in August of 21, after the murders.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Alec came over and was inquiring of you what shirt he had on that day, correct?
It didn't feel like he was inquiring. It felt more like he was trying to convince me of the shirt that he was wearing.
Did he tell you that he just finished?
Objection.
I'm sorry, I'm just asking if he told you something.
Objection.
It's cross-examination.
Not objecting to hearsay for the record.
I need to hear the question,
Did,
number one. Number two is cross-examination. Go ahead.
Did he tell you that he just finished
Objection.
meeting? Do you want me to pose the question, Your Honor, or not?
All right. I'm going to send the jury to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case. Be seated. Okay, what is the question?
Just wait 1 second, Your Honor. Let me see if I can get back on track. When you were talking with him in the little house in August, as we were talking about a moment ago, and he was talking about the shirt, did he tell you that he had just been interviewed by Swed, who'd shown him the Snapchat photo, and he was attempting to figure out what he was wearing that day. I mean, it's in a photo. Did he tell you that?
What's the specific question?
Did he, when he asked you the question about the shirt, did he tell you he'd just come from being interviewed by Sweat?
No, sir, he didn't tell me that.
And what is the objection?
Your Honor, it's respectfully, it's hearsay. Statement is hearsay, that if he wants to do that, he can take the stand and do it. He's trying to offer the defendant's statement without him taking the stand. It's offered for the truth of the matter asserted. That's my objection.
All right, any response?
My response is, if you can't ask witnesses about what the defendant said to them, you're going to have a rough road to hoe going forward, because it's a statement by the party, party opponent, if you will. I think they argued earlier on when we objected to one. It's not hearsay. There's an exception to hearsay by a statement by one of the parties. It's Alex.
Statement by the party opponent, being a statement by the party opponent, the defendant.
Mr. Murdaugh's statement to this woman.
Others?
Not this matters. I've been doing this 35 years. He's on trial.
We know that.
But I'm just saying, it's not a party opponent. He's trying to get in a statement from the defendant. Statements against interest, that the state, there is a difference between the state asking what the defendant said and the defense. And if they hadn't objected to some, they thought that's their prerogative, but they're trying to offer the defendant's statement in evidence without him taking the stand. I respectfully think that's objectable as hearsay. He's the defendant on trial. They're offering it for the self-serving hearsay. They're offering it for the truth of the matter asserted. And I respectfully think that he's got to take the stand and get that information in.
And Your Honor, maybe I'll make this simple. What would your answer to that question be now? Did he tell you about talking to Sweat that day?
No, sir, he did not.
Okay.
Your Honor, 801D2 allows us to ask the question and not the defense.
I don't understand what the self-serving is. She didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about Sweat.
Your Honor, he could get his whole case through witnesses and he wouldn't have to take the stand.
Absolutely.
And that's not
You've got a Fifth
appropriate.
Amendment right
No, sir.
to not take the stand.
That's right, but you can't.
I think Brick will let you all debate the issue between the two.
I apologize,
I'll
Your
rule
Honor.
when I get back.
All right. come to order. You may now be seated.
The objection is sustained. It's hearsay. You bring the jury. All right, thank you. The objection is sustained. Your next question.
Please support, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
So this conversation occurred, I think, did you say prior to them going on a golf tournament? Going to a golf tournament?
Yes, sir. He said Randy had just dropped him off so that he could get his clothes, because him and Buster and Randy were going golfing.
Him and Buster and who?
Randy.
Randy, yeah, okay. We're going to a golf tournament that weekend?
I don't know if it was a golf tournament or what, but I know he said they were going away, they were going golfing.
Okay. And speaking of Buster, can you point Buster out in the audience for me, please? Buster, oh, you're back there. Okay, I'm sorry. Stand up, please.
Yes, sir.
Is that Buster?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Y'all always had a great relationship, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
He's a
thank you.
good kid.
I'm sorry?
He's a good kid.
He's a good kid. Okay, so one of the other questions I have is, did you ever see Paul with any guns?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. And did he have guns around all the time?
Yes, he did.
Matter of fact, they're all guns all over that place, right?
In the vehicles, on the go-karts, sometimes in the hangar.
So did Paul ever leave guns? Just where, if he was, for instance, down at the hangar, would he ever leave guns down there?
I have found one occasionally out there.
A pistol or rifle?
A rifle.
You know what kind it was?
No, sir.
Okay. And do you know if he ever left any down in the feed room?
Not in the feed room. I'm not sure about the feed
Okay,
room.
you never saw anything in the
No,
feed
sir.
room. I believe in one of your statements I read that sometimes he'd leave them somewhere and actually there'd be rust on the rifle or the shotgun or whatever.
If he left it on the golf cart outside, he would sometimes leave it laying across, and I would get it in the morning, and already the dew would rust off.
And that would be a golf cart he would drive down to the kennels, for instance?
Yes, sir, whichever one he was in, and he preferred the gas. The gas one is usually where I used to find
Gas?
golf cart, yes.
Okay. And so that would be a way he would get down to the kennel sometimes?
Sometimes, the majority of the time, he was either in Dolly or in his own truck.
In what?
Dolly,
What is Dolly?
the F-250.
I forgot, y'all name all your trucks, or they named all their trucks, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so most of the time he would be in a truck, but sometimes he would take the golf cart, if you will, down there.
Yes, sir.
And apparently sometimes he had guns in the golf cart.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let me touch a couple of other things. Did that day you saw the sled folks in there, did You see them taking any pictures? Or do you remember?
I believe some of them were taking pictures, but I'm not positive.
Okay. You were shown a picture of a rain jacket,
Yes, sir, I was.
okay? And had you ever seen that rain jacket at the house?
Not at Moselle, no, sir.
Correct. You ever, and what size clothes did Alec wear?
2XL.
2XL, not just a large. Would anything, a large fit him?
I don't think he might have had one or two items that were that size, but most of the clothing was 2XL.
2XL. How about, would you put exhibit number? Yes, please. And blow it up for me, please. Okay, how about make that bigger for me, please? No, not the rain jacket. I'm sorry, the Snapchat picture. I apologize. Well, wait 1 second. You see that rain jacket on there?
Yes, sir.
That's, you've never seen that, according to your statement, never seen that at
I've
Moselle?
never seen that jacket.
Okay. And you knew pretty much everything, every piece of clothing that was there, right?
For the most part, yes.
Yes. Okay. And how many rain jackets did Alex have? You remember?
Too many to count.
Too many to count, okay. But none of them looked like that.
No, sir.
Okay. How about blow that up for me, please? Can you make it any better, closer? Yeah, that's good right there. And that shirt is that the one he was wearing that morning when he
No,
left?
sir, it was not.
It's not.
No, sir, that was not the shirt he was wearing.
And this is at 7, you understand this is 7:40 p.m. That evening when he's out with Paul?
I wasn't there then.
Okay. But that's not the shirt he was wearing when he left that morning?
That is correct. That was not the shirt.
Okay, beg the court's indulgence, 1 moment. You were aware he had clothes at his office, kept clothes at his office?
Yes, sir, among other places.
Where else would he have
Car.
clothes? He have it in a car?
Yes, sir.
Where else?
In Edisto.
I'm sorry?
In Edisto.
In Edisto, okay. But if he was in the Moselle area, if he was going to change his shirt from in the morning, would he have changed it at the office or got something out of his car? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Now, let me show you. .107. Can you tell the jury what that is, please?
The text messages from me and Maggie?
This is on June 7th, 2021, right?
That is correct.
And the first one, I'm just going to try to hurry this up a little bit. She asked you to stop.
Yes, sir.
She says, will you stop by, this is at 7:05 a.m., stop by the store and get Alex Capri Sun. He likes orange and pineapple flavor plus mountain cooler. Thank you, I'll pay you back. You say, I will. She says, thank you, get 2 boxes. Now, after that conversation, there's a text at 3:28 p.m. Blanca, dinner's on the stove, just left. So you left there at about 3:30, correct?
Yes, I sent the text before I actually walked out of the house. I had a habit of sending her the text, make sure everything, and then locked up before I left.
Okay.
But at that time, I had gone upstairs to drop off some clothes. I noticed that Paul's truck, or a white truck, was sitting at the kennels. So I left the front door unlocked at that time instead of locking it.
But you didn't see Alex anywhere there?
No, sir.
Okay. You didn't see his vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. And she says at 3:40, thank you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then at 3:54, you said, you're welcome, I just made your deposit. Maggie then says, I guess this is a fun exchange. Thank you, I'm waiting at the doctor. Alex wants me to come home. I had to leave the door open at Edisto, but trust the Mexicans to shut and lock for me.
Yes, sir.
And then she says, Alex's dad back at the hospital. The last doctor claims not cancer, pneumonia. Alex is about to die. Hope he doesn't go down there to sleep. Now, you know what she meant by that?
What she meant was Maggie used to get frustrated. She said every time something happened at Alameda with his dad or his mom, that Alec would get called and nobody else, that they always called Alec to go to the house. And she did get upset over that the family was basically putting all that on Alec and he wasn't getting enough rest.
So when she said he's going to die, she's worried about his health.
She was worried about his health, yes.
Okay. And she says Alex needs to take care of himself as well. And that's consistent with what you just said, correct? She's
Yes.
worried about his health.
Yes.
And you said, yes, he does. He told me he was tired when he left. I hope they can treat Mr. Randolph. Maggie says, I'm scared for him and Alex and all of us. What do you mean by that?
Because Alec hadn't had much sleep. That was her main concern, was the fact that, her main frustration was the fact that in the middle of the night or whenever, if Mr. Randolph or Miss Libby were uncomfortable, that they would always, she seemed to think that they always called Alec and there goes Alec, to take care of it. And she felt that it wasn't fair that he was the only one having to take them.
And your response to that is, I know, just pray about it and hope he gets a little better. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you say, Alex and you really need to relax. Always being on the go with little or no sleep is not healthy. Remember, I have a doctor's appointment in the morning in Beaufort. If I get done early, I'll go to Moselle. I'll let you know. And she says, no worries, right?
Yes.
Now, oh, you got the exhibit. Take that from him and hand it to. Okay. So, she preferred to be in Edisto, correct?
That's correct.
But she was going that day, based on all your texts, she was going because Mr. Randolph had been put back in the hospital and she was worried about Alex, right? I mean, she was heading to Moselle. She preferred to be in Edisto, but she was heading to Moselle because Mr. Randolph had been put back in the hospital and she was concerned about Alex. Isn't that what this is?
The objection is sustained.
Okay. She indicated to you that Paul was coming in your telephone conversations, correct?
That is correct.
And did she indicate in your telephone conversations that she needed dinner for her, Paul, and Alec, right?
Yes, she did.
And did she indicate in any way that she did not want to go to Moselle to have dinner with Alec, Paul, that night?
Her conversation with me was that Alec wanted her to go to Moselle that day, and she was concerned about the workers that she had in Edisto, and she would have preferred to be in Edisto, taking care of the final details.
But for Mr. Randolph's condition.
She was concerned about the work being done and leaving the house open in Edisto.
She wasn't concerned about Mr. Randolph.
I mean, she was, but her more concern was that her house was open.
Okay. Now, I mean, she preferred to be at Edisto in the summertime as opposed to Moselle at all, correct?
That is correct.
Now, let me ask you, did Swed ask you about at any point about the clothes that Alex was wearing on the 7th? At some point, did they ask you that?
Not until recently.
Recently, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it clear to you, I mean, you've been asked recently to recollect something that happened in June of 21, which is almost 2 years ago. Did they ask you other questions about what happened on June 7th when they asked you about the clothes?
They asked me where I was. They asked me what I was doing. They asked me when I saw Alec leaving that day, my discussions with Maggie. They requested to see my phone, which I gave them, so they could see the text messages, phone calls that we had had.
Okay. You and Maggie were very close.
We were.
You and Alex were close also, were you not?
Yes, sir.
And did you feel like a member of the family?
Yes, sir.
Had you ever heard from anybody about any, well, strike that. Did you indicate that Maggie, one of the things Maggie told you was that she was not, after the boat case, she was not being treated very well by the people in Hampton, correct?
That is correct.
They shunned her, they were rude to her, those kinds of things.
That is correct.
Did she also indicate to you that she was concerned about Paul because he'd received a bunch of threats?
Objection. Your objection's overruled.
Did she ever indicate to you she was concerned about Paul because Paul had received threats?
Yes.
Okay, beg the court's indulgence. I moved 107 into evidence.
Is it up there?
I gave it to the clerk.
Any objection?
Oh, I think I want to say no objection.
It's admitted without objection.
That same morning of the 8th, did you clean the gun room?
I didn't go in the gun room. I went in there, but I didn't do anything in the gun room.
Didn't pick anything up?
No, sir.
Okay, and when you went into the kitchen that morning, was there anything that would indicate to you that other people had been there the night before? Like glasses or bottles of water or anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Redirect.
Mr. Harpootlian, just got a couple of questions. Mr. Harpootlian asked you about the clothes in the closet on June 8th, 2021. You remember?
Yes, sir.
And he asked you if there could have been another shirt in the room.
Yes, sir.
And was your response maybe a T-shirt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you see another dress shirt there?
No, sir.
And while we're getting to that, did you work at Almeida?
No, sir.
Did you ever go there?
No, I have been there on one occasion previously, and I don't remember what I had to drop off.
Well, that blue poncho rain jacket Mr. Harpootlian showed you, that was at Almeida, wasn't it? Or do you know?
I don't know where that came from.
But you never saw that at Moselle, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And State 7, well, first of all, this is States 2. States 306. Have you ever seen that shirt again since you went back the 8th, the 9th, until today? Have you ever seen that shirt again?
And there's once I moved a lot of the belongings to the little house, he had packed some of the clothes up, but over the weekends and stuff, when they were going from place to place, I noticed that he was purchasing different clothing items, shorts, shirts. So there was a couple of new ones in there, which still was not that shirt. It was some of the newer ones.
Who was purchasing a lot of shorts and shirts?
Alec.
After this event? After the murder?
Yes, sir. On the weekends when they were gone with the family, if he was going different places, he would come back like that Monday or Tuesday, and there was like new items within the clothes.
New shirts?
New shirts.
New shorts?
Yes.
You know what kind?
Vineyard Vines.
They were buying mini vines.
Yes, sir.
After the murders?
Yes, sir. There were like polo type Vineyard Vines.
And what shirt had he suggested to you he was wearing in August on this day? What shirt had he just suggested to you he was wearing?
Vineyard Vines. Vinny Vines is what they call them.
In State 7, you said you recognize these shorts and shirts?
Yes, sir.
Where was this shirt kept on States 107 in Moselle?
In the closet, if there was no room in that drawer.
On the shelves?
Yes, sir, on the shelf.
And looking at 306, is that outfit different from this outfit?
Yes, sir, it is.
And I think Mr. Harpootlian showed you 107. Whose idea was it for Maggie Murdaugh to come to Moselle on the evening of June 7th?
Objection, Your Honor.
You can testify if you know.
Your Honor, here's that.
You can testify if you know.
Maggie texted me that Alec wanted her to come to Moselle.
And is that on 107 that Mr. Harpootlian just put in?
Yes, sir, it is.
That's all, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Look that up for me, please. What's that exhibit?
Just a couple questions. After Maggie's death and Paul's death, did you notice he was losing weight?
Yes, sir, he was.
Dramatic loss of weight, right?
Yes, sir.
So the clothes we can see him in that picture, he's fat is the wrong word, but overweight kind of guy, big guy, fleshy looking guy, right there, okay? Now, so he needed to buy new clothes because the other clothes are falling off of him, right?
I assume so, yes. Yes, sir.
So it wouldn't be unusual for him to need to buy new clothes because he's losing weight.
I guess.
Okay. Now, this is 306. This is the picture, and you say this is a shirt like a Columbia shirt, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, a Columbia shirt, don't they have a logo that says Columbia?
Yes, sir. You know, the sleeve or,
You see one on here?
I don't see anything on this shirt. The style of shirt is a Columbia style shirt.
It's not a, you're not saying it was a brand name Columbia shirt. You're saying it was a Columbia style shirt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your testimony again is this is not the shirt he walked out with that morning,
He did not walk out with that shirt that morning.
but those could be the khakis he walked out with that morning.
Possibly, yes.
And when you say you never saw that shirt again, you did see those khakis again, did you not?
Yes, sir, I washed those khakis. They were in the bathroom. I'm assuming it was the same pair because he only had a few that he wore.
Right, okay. And in addition, your testimony would be that the only, well, I guess you're saying that morning he didn't have that shirt on, but he had those pants on.
Could possibly have those pants. He had several.
Okay. And would you scroll down to the footwear, please? Okay, those are loafers, right?
Yes, sir.
And what do they seem to be made out of?
Like soft leather.
So your testimony is that those were shoes he only wore around the house. He had like house slippers?
Usually when Alec would go outside, he had them Georgia boots that he would wear or the duck boots, and those would be left by the front door when I would walk through the door in the next morning.
In June, it was pretty hot down there in Moselle.
Yes, sir, but those were his go-to shoes
Okay.
when he would go outside or mess around, like he said, with Paul that day.
What kind of shoes was he wearing when he went to work that day?
The dress shoes, a pair of brown leather.
Okay. Now, when were you first asked about what he was wearing that day?
Maybe a couple of days when they interviewed me.
When they interviewed you the first time?
Yes, sir.
They asked you what he had on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for lunch and resume at 2:15. Please do not discuss the case.